Stop! You violated the law.
It's the full preview podcast. UFC 319.
Hello everyone and welcome to the UFC 319 full preview. So we have another pay-per-view by the UFC. This one is headlined by a fight that there's a chance that it might not be good, but it is very compelling and I'm very excited about it, to be quite honest. We have middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis defending his middleweight championship against Khamzat Chimaev. So we have a very interesting clash of styles here. Obviously, du Plessis, he has been beaten before, but undefeated in the UFC. Big wins against the likes of Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. Dethroned former champion Sean Strickland in a very close fight, but made it very clear on the rematch that he was the champion and he was here to stay. Against him we have Khamzat Chimaev, the Chechen wrestler who is still undefeated in his professional MMA career. Chimaev comes with a 14-0 record and has only faced like any kind of adversity like twice in his career, in his fights against Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman. So, but we'll get into that. This had at one moment 15 bouts, but we are down 2. So for those of you that don't know, we have the Ultimate Fighter finals in this card, but the fight between Rodrigo Cezinando and Daniil Donchenko has been cancelled, as well as a bout between King Green and Carlos Diego Ferreira. Those two fights are no longer happening. We still have 13 bouts. This is going on in Chicago, Illinois, at the United Center. So we have 13 fights. How good is this card? We'll see when we get into that. So why don't we get into our first fight of the night? So I was talking about the Ultimate Fighter finals. Finale. When do you use finale and when do you use final? Anyway. But yes, we have. Let's get right into it. Our first fight of the night. The Ultimate Fighter Flyweight final, we have Alibi Idiris against Joseph Morales. Let's begin with Idiris. A Kazakh wrestle kickboxer with a tall stance, a bouncy wild style that is common from the area. He trains out of Erkin Kosh, a gym that has produced former UFC fighters like Sergey Morozov and Shalgas Shumagulov. Dynamic and creative, Idiris throws most of his strikes with full power, though he has been incorporating more probing with his lead hand lately. Owner of a wide variety of shots, straight punches, hooks, front kicks, roundhouses, pairing attacks together and playing off reactions are a strong suit for him. Very good at landing knees from range, be it stepping on them or just jumping into range. Spinning kicks are also part of the menu. He attacks all 3 levels constantly, and while his footwork can be messy at times, especially when extending combination, he constantly looks to create angles for both offensive and defensive reasons. His check hook is an example of this. He can throw it wild, can lose his footing after pivoting, but it usually works for getting him offline. Other than footwork, his defense relies on leanbacks, blocks, and sometimes ducking, looking for counters inside the pocket. What sets him apart from other fighters from the region is his willingness to put combinations together and his thoughtful shot selection. Not only a striker, Idiris is also a solid wrestler. Inside the clinch, he mostly looks to complete trips against the cage, having a number of setups for both inside and outside varieties. But he's also dangerous with easy transitions and combinations during breaks. While capable of finishing singles and double legs, he lacks setups at open space. He's better shooting when he pressures foes to the fence. Defensively, he has been a very solid wrestler, strong with the whizzer and very heavy hips, who can deny or reverse any obvious takedown attempts. From top, he's powerful with ground and pound, and while he's heavy from top position, he will often favor damage over control. His use of rights to land ground and pound is notable, but he's also a threat from the back and mount. Idiris looks to be well conditioned and very tough so far. His wild technique and shallow defense on the feet can expose him, and he works better in bigger cages, as he can be lacking in cagecraft at times. Against him we have Joseph Morales, a team alpha male wrestle boxer. Morales fights heavy on his front foot, looking to maintain neutral space with constant pivots or to pressure behind his 1-2. His offense is on the minimalistic side, fighting behind the jab and looking to put short combinations together, mostly with long shots. But his solid footwork and ability to counter make him a threat as a boxer and give him surprising versatility. A front kick up the middle and sneaky head kicks from both sides help him with variety and allow him withstanding opponents upright. Footwork and erratic head movement after combinations are his main ways of defense, but he can be pushed back in straight lines if unsure of what's coming. Solid in transitions, Morales does a lot of work drawing out kicks with his boxing and then catching those kicks and converting them into counters or takedowns. A scrambly wrestler, Morales will shoot takedowns in open space and has a sound single leg, but he finishes a lot of his offense from the body lock. He's also good at taking the back standing. He will look for mat returns and broomstick sweeps to get the fight down. Takedown defense is solid if not outstanding, but it's greatly complemented by his scrambling ability, with a good number of mat wrestling resources available to him. From top, he's solid, working aggressive passes and constantly posturing up to look to improve position or land shots. And taking the back is a specialty for him, with a good number of rear naked chokes to his name. Also good from his back, Morales has never been submitted. He remains safe from bad position and always works to create movement. And he will attack submissions from guard 2, being the owner of 2 triangle choke victories. Morales is solid all around with good cardio and very tough. He can lack a second gear and some lapses in takedown defense can expose him against well-rounded opponents. So the Ultimate Fighter final pits 2 well-rounded threats against each other. Team DC Idiris is undefeated and is the more athletic and dynamic of the two, while Team Sonen's Morales has more high-level experience with a previous UFC run under his belt. At range, Idiris will have an advantage with his kicking arsenal and more powerful punches, but Morales is probably the better school striker in boxing situations. Idiris has struggled when he cannot easily seize the initiative, and Morales has been pressuring more insistently since his tough run. Morales might find success pushing the Kazakh back, punishing his linear retreats and trying to find takedowns against the fence. But Idiris fights at a higher clip with variety and dynamism on his side, and he's also a very sturdy wrestler who is likely to have a physicality edge. This coupled with this being contested at a big cage, and I gotta favor Alibi to win by decision here. We go from the male flyweight division to the female flyweight division, as we have a bout between Karine Silva and Dione Barbosa. So let's begin with Karine Silva. An athletic and confident grappler, she keeps busy at range with jabs, front kicks, and leg kicks. She feints and switches stances to give different looks and find her spots. And she carries decent power, especially in her overhand right, and she's a very hard kicker too. She's active parrying and her good distance management make for the bulk of her decent. She makes it work though with good eyes and composure. She uses her overhand right to transition into clinches and takedown attempts very effectively. She's very strong, physically strong during tie-ups. Athleticism and solid footwork allow her to finish takedowns if she finds a body lock. Single and double leg series is functional and allow her to finish against the fence as well. And in case of that not working, she will also drop down for half guard entries to work her leg lock game. Her leg lock game is a big part of her grappling game. From top, she's the owner of heavy ground and pound, and she's a versatile submission threat. Particularly with her front headlock series during transitions, and her aforementioned leg lock game. From her back, she can also create movement to get to the legs, and she will attack with traditional like submission attacks, and she has also shown the ability to wall walk, but she can be put on her back. She is tough, but her cardio has been hit and miss. Her lack of depth and process on the feet is a problem, and she can be controlled from top if she can't create a space or get to the legs, as I previously mentioned. Against her, we have Dione Barbosa, a former judoka. Barbosa is athletic and nimble on her feet, mostly finds behind jab feints, and a quick and stiff 1-2. after which she's good at angling out or avoiding counters, leaning or stepping back. Heavy kicks, especially with her right leg, help her with variety, and she can build different follow-ups and change-ups off the jab once she has it established. She's decent at using tie-ups and clinches to defend when she's not able to use her linear in-and-out movement and pivots in close. Her defense is a lot more limited when pushed back though, without control of the initiative, with linear retreats and lack of head movement. Outside judoka, the clinch is a strong phase for her, being very good at finding takedowns in transition after her punches or ducking under incoming attacks. But has also adapted her judo throws to work against defense well, and she's effective from overhooks and underhooks thanks to her footwork and timing. On the ground, she has a solid base from top position, exerting heavy pressure from half guard and 3/4 mount. If she finds herself on her back, she will use butterfly hooks to either sweep or elevate her opponents and move onto pushing the hips to get up. She's sort of an armbar specialist. She has a multitude of setups and variants to the technique to go for the submission, but she can relinquish position when looking for it. Barbosa is athletic and tough, but her cardio has looked sketchy and she can struggle against fellow strong clinch grapplers. Her lack of depth on the feet can be a problem too. So this is a rematch. They originally fought in 2019 in a fight that I sadly couldn't find anywhere. What's interesting on paper though is that Barbosa, who was only 2-0 at the time, was able to beat the vastly more experienced Silva, who came into that fight with a 9-3 record. Barbosa takes this on short notice as Silva was supposed to fight JJ Aldrich here. Both have struggled during third rounds, and it remains to be seen if that was fixed. Barbosa rebounded after losing to Miranda Maverick with a quick first round win over Belbitsa, while Silva is coming off her first UFC loss against Viviane Araújo. Karine Silva is now with Fighting Nerds, so there might be some kind of overhaul to her game. But I do think that Barbosa can match the athleticism of Silva, and I feel like Silva does not like when she fights a fellow athlete. I feel like that was kind of apparent in the Araújo fight. While both lack depth on the feet, Karine has a comfort advantage, while Barbosa is certainly the better school striker of the two. Barbosa has struggled being taken down in the past, but I don't think Silva has the wrestling of Miranda Maverick, and she takes more risks during scrambles too, while Barbosa is a bit safer. I feel like Barbosa's more disciplined boxing and better priorities on the ground will overcome the power shots and leg lock game of Karine. It is risky because she comes in short notice, but I think that Barbosa beats Karine once again via decision. After that, we move to middleweight. We have a bout between Nursulton Ruziboev and Bryan battle. So let's begin with Ruziboev. A tall kickboxer, Ruziboev fights out of a tall bouncy stance. While he can fight behind his jab and inside leg kick to establish range, what he really wants to do is to leap in with left hooks and right hands, and especially counter entries with his right hand as he's trans fighter on the outside. He has decent power and accuracy with his punches, and a bit of variety, able to throw wide, straight, and surprise with the occasional uppercut. Spinning attacks at range help with variety and he throws them with good timing and technique. Ruziboev's defense relies largely on his spacing and length. He has decent footwork on the outside, but he exposed himself leaping into range, nullifying his usual reach advantage. His length makes him hard to deal with inside the clinch, and he can be dangerous, particularly during breaks. Takedown defense has looked sketchy, especially in open space. While he's a good scrambler, he usually needs to create movement during transitions and can be stuck on the bottom by heavy top players. Despite only 20 submission wins in his record, his grappling has looked just average against UFC level opponents, as most of his grappling success was against subpar competition. Ruziboev is tough and seems to have decent cardio at 185, but his game is on the shallow side. Against him we have Bryan battle, a well-rounded long volume kickboxer. He has made improvements to his boxing since his UFC debut, especially his ability to throw relaxed volume and put combinations together. His kicks are powerful and allow him to compete at long range. He's also a dexterous kicker with good variety. He usually weaponizes his length and his volume to take over fights and make up for a lack of depth to his striking. Defense mostly consists on spacing and high guard, but he has good eyes and awareness and seems harder to hurt than it would look with his lack of head movement. Battle is also a good transition fighter. Grabbing clinches also offer a form of defense, and he can flow between his combination punching and smothering with clinches. Knees and elbows from the clinch are also a strong point, particularly if he gets to collar ties. Knees and elbows... Oh, I just mentioned that, I'm sorry. Battle is willing to grind takedowns against the fence if he feels he has a grappling advantage. Not a nuanced offensive wrestler, but he's physical and insistent. Good fierce slayer of defensive wrestling thanks to his length and physical strength, has had trouble defending against chain wrestling against the fence. A solid BJJ player, from top position he mixes good positioning with punishing ground and pound and submission threats during transitions. From his back he's hard to hurt as he styles well, and he's good at recovering guard, but his ability to get back up has looked lacking so far. Good cardio and athletic, but Battle is dependent on his pace and transitions to take over fights and can struggle against specialists who can impose their game. So, Battle moves back to 185 and is immediately welcomed by someone with a considerable height advantage over him. Ruziboev might be able to surprise Battle early with his length advantage and being dangerous out of the gate, and he could take advantage of Battle's lack of head movement with his counters or just slipping into range. That being said, Battle is very tough, and he probably has a solid striking edge if he gets into close range and extend combinations. Battle's kicking game will also make competing with Ruziboev on the outside easier. I feel like also Ryan Battle is the superior grappler. On top of that, Ruziboev is no stranger in finding himself on his back, and probably has Battle has a cardio edge on top of that. I think that Bryan Battle will become the first man to finish Ruziboev with a second round knockout here. We move to lightweight for our next fight, as Edson Barboza fights against Drakkar Klose. Let's begin with Barboza. Barboza returns to 155 after a stint at featherweight. The Brazilian kickboxer is still a dynamic threat with power and speed to spare. But the years haven't been in vain, as Barboza has certainly taken a hit when it comes to durability and reaction time. But the smaller weight cut might help him with that here. Barboza is still a sharp combination striker with a dodge style. He attacks all three levels with punch-kick combinations and is well schooled about moving his head and feet with his strikes. The left hook, switch kick, and right overhand are his most reliable weapons, and he has a solid jab that he uses to get combinations going. He also likes to use elbows and knees, particularly to intercept incoming foes and dissuade them from pressuring. While he has shown good defensive skills with his footwork and head movement, his defense is on the roadside and he can tend to fall into big movements when pressured. Takedown defense is a strong suit, usually only conceding takedowns against high-level wrestlers after the pressure and pace are wearing on him. He can be put against the fence with takedown attempts, but he's strong in the clinch and fight grips well before framing and angling out. When taken down, Barboza has shown some grappling chops with butterfly hooks, traditional guard game, and even some leg entanglements. While he doesn't use it often, Barboza is the owner of an explosive double leg in open space, and has shown big ground and pound in a few occasions. As already mentioned, Barboza is still quite fast and athletic, and his technique and tactics are still sharp. He also remains well conditioned despite his energy-intensive style. For Barboza, the problem has always been how he falls apart when pressured over long periods, as he's not a natural counterpuncher and his footwork can get too wide. Against him we have Drakkar Klose, a grindy, well-rounded MMA lab fighter. On the feet, Klose is a switch hitter who can pressure well behind big kicks and jabs, looking for power kicks to the body and overhands finding clinch entries. If put on the back foot, he can lead hook well off both stances, he kicks hard and moves around decently well. His defense relies on his ability to smother and take steps back, but he can move his head and feet well during spots. Clinching is his A game, very aggressive with dirty boxing and digging knees from a variety of grips, usually winning exchanges of single collar ties. And he can also grind for takedowns from the body lock, being effective with trips attacking the legs. He shines during transitions, being a surprisingly solid combination puncher from up close during breaks, and being able to convert takedown attempts into clinch striking and vice versa. From top position, he's not very controlling, but will look to attack ground and pound, favoring rights. If putting his back, he's very active, attacking with elbows from bottom and always looking to create space for his hips and look for get-ups. Toughness has always been one of his best qualities, and while cardio has faded a bit with age, he still pushes hard in later rounds. Despite being more insistent with pressure and more aggressive in later years, he still has trouble accepting the fight his opponents give him, and he can fail to put a stamp on rounds if he doesn't find big moments. A fellow veteran welcomes Barbosa back to 155. Klose is only 2 years younger than the Brazilian, but he has only 19 pro bouts as opposed to Barbosa's 36. So almost half the fights. Despite coming off a loss, Klose has been the more consistent winner lately, being 4-1 in his last fight, contrasted with Edson, who is 2-3 in his last fight. That being said, Barbosa has been fighting a higher level of opposition. Klose has a style and tools to trouble Barbosa and win this fight, especially if he can find clinches and rough him up against the cage. Hopefully to eventually find takedowns, and he also has a few good tools at range to compete with his leg kicks and a solid jab and lead hooks. The thing with Klose is that he tends to lose focus over long fights and relies on his ability to compete everywhere to win. Barbosa, on the other hand, can falter to pressure, but he remains focused and knows where he wins fights. I also expect Barbosa to have a big speed advantage that will come in handy to move back to the center of the cage where he's the superior striker. Klose should win this fight, taking over more as the fight progresses, but I feel like the contrary is actually going to happen, and that Barbosa will be able to keep the distance and get his combinations going as the American loses focus. So I'm taking a risk here, going against the logic of the matchup, and I think that it's Barbosa who is winning this fight by decision. We stay at lightweight as Alexander Hernandez faces off against Chase Hooper. So let's begin with Hooper. A lanky grappler, Hooper has gained physicality and aggressiveness since his move to 155. He's an aggressive southpaw on the feet. He keeps active with karate-style kicks, shifting blitzes, and a decently powerful left hand. Chase Hooper usually throws straight shots when blitzing, but he likes to throw his left as an overhand from range. He takes his head off centerline when throwing the overhand and usually closes the door with the right hook. Other than that, his defense is bare bones and he depends on aggression and level changes to keep himself safe. When it comes to wrestling, Hooper highly favors the body lock. He can try trips or swimming to the back from there, and he's surprisingly strong. Hooper is a tremendously versatile grappler. He doesn't mind being on his back as he's flexible and very good at creating space to start flowing. He mostly creates scrambles by rolling to the legs. And he has been adding solid ground and pound during transitions and controlling positions. Not very controlling from top position due to the flowy nature of his grappling, but he's dangerous from the back take and the front headlock. Hooper is very tough and decently conditioned. His striking defense remains his biggest flaw. Against him we have Alexander Hernandez, an athletic fighter that likes to fight in bursts. Hernandez often moves on the outside, exploding with moments of aggression, but he's better when allowed to operate at neutral, given time to feint and reset to set up his attacks. A switch hitter, Hernandez is the owner of a sharp 1-2 and kicks to all three levels from both stances. He's at his best when he starts to flow on the feet, maintaining initiative and using his footwork tricks and output to remain safe. Defense is largely hit and miss, while attacks Hernandez can angle out after a combination and can draw out attacks to pull away and counter. His head movement can be lacking and he can retreat in straight lines if attacked with longer combinations. A decent wrestler and grappler, Hernandez is aided by his physical strength and athleticism to attack takedowns and scramble effectively. But he's a solid technical grappler when the fight hits the mat, having good passes from top and good submission defense from the bottom, plus big ground and pound. Hernandez has great attributes, and other than some lack of depth to some areas of his game, his biggest problem remains his mental side. When he's confident, he has his head over his shoulder, Hernandez is an offensive threat with exploitable defensive flaws, but when he doubts himself, he's quick to lose the grip of the fight, and his defensive flaws get exposed easily with lower output. His cardio also seems dependable on his confidence. So, Hooper looks to keep his undefeated streak at 155 against Hernandez. Hooper's aggression and physicality has made him look very good against aging opposition in his last couple of fights. This, coupled with legit improvements to his striking, wrestling, and ground and pound, mean Hooper is a serious threat and not a one-trick pony at 155. Hernandez himself is in a 2-fight winning streak since moving back up to 155. He had a rough drop down to 145. So it will be interesting to see if Hernandez looks to play striker or tries to wrestle and impose top position on Hooper or mixes the two. Skill-wise, I think Hernandez has the tools to beat Hooper, having better mobility and pop to deal with Hooper's power on the feet than, let's say, like Clay Guida and Jim Miller. Hernandez is also a physical clincher and a solid wrestler to deny the takedowns, and he's the owner of heavy top control to stifle Hooper on the ground. But what Hooper brings to the table is exactly what makes Hernandez stout, and that's aggressiveness, danger, and consistency. To me, this looks like a fight where Hernandez gets to look good at spots, but slowly gets overwhelmed by the aggressive nature of Hooper. Hernandez makes a few key mistakes on the ground and lowers his output as the fight goes on, as Hooper wins a decision here. We go all the way down to strawweight for our next one. Jessica Andrade fights Loopy Godinez. So let's begin with the former champion Jessica Andrade. Despite being clearly past her best, Andrade remains a force at both 115 and 125. Still, Andrade is in a clear physical decline, more notorious in some aspects than others. She is still an athlete to be reckoned with, but the few steps she has been losing in speed and strength are apparent. And her always present technical flaws are more present than ever, this only augmented by her inconsistency in her performances. That said, Andrade still has good qualities. She still is a very big hitter with power in both hands and will throw her hooks in combination. She can also punish the body to great effect. When she remembers to, she can use leg kicks well, and same goes for head movement, which has been hit or miss. Andrade is good at tracking opponents against around the cage, doubling her hooks, but her pressuring footwork falls apart once she starts exchanging and has trouble staying on top of opponents. She has good takedown defense against the fence, and her strength allow her to get hard underhooks, plus her footwork and head positioning are on point. Andrade historically has been frustrated by good movers on the outside and clinches in open space. Her shin seems to not be at its best anymore, but the cardio seems to be holding on still. Despite no apparent conditioning issues though, her volume has also become inconsistent. Against her we have Loopy Godinez, a stocky powerful athlete with a wrestling background. On the feet, she's mostly a boxer who leverages her takedown threat with level changes. Godinez is the owner of a solid jab, and she can follow it up with looping shots from both hands with decent power. The 1-2 is her best lead, and she has some solid counter ideas with the left hook. She can change things up with elbows when being pressured, and she's good at converting her hooks into collar ties to land knees in transition. Her defense isn't very nuanced, but she does a good job of mixing her high guard with lean backs to throw counters or collapse into clinches to remain safe. A powerful wrestler, Godinez has a variety of takedowns under her sleeve. She can shoot in open space reactively, turning the corner well on her double leg, but she's also quick to transition to trips from the clinch if denied initially. Against the cage, she's also strong and can find takedowns with her variety of trips or changing levels to her sound single leg. Godinez can be heavy from top position and passes well, but has struggled to mix her ground pound with her control. She will attack submissions in transitions though, being a good back taker, and has used the arm triangle a couple of times as well. Loopy is a decently well put together fighter is tough, athletic, and conditioned. Her main problem is that she can run out of ideas because of her lack of depth, and she can lose dynamism and surprise factor as fights go long. So, Andrade is back at 115 after some lackluster performances against contenders at 125. She won her last 2 fights at strawweight, and I've been saying that she should stay at this weight class at this stage of her career. But it seems like Andrade is willing to fight anyone as long as she's getting a paycheck. Loopy, on the other hand, has had inconsistent results in her UFC run, though losing close fights to Mackenzie Dern and Rishi has aged pretty well. Andrade remains a physical force at 115, so it will be interesting to see if Godinez is able to take her down. As Andrade's reactions become slower, this gets more likely. Loopy's no slouch boxing and has decent pop, so she's not completely lost if this remains on the feet. But I think that at the end of the day, picking Godinez is mostly an age pick, which at this stage is completely justified. But I haven't seen Andrade lose this exact matchup at this weight class yet. And while Godinez is good, I feel the fight is forgiving for an old version of the former champion. Loopy will engage at the places Andrade wants to fight, and as her dynamism with takedown lessens the longer the fight goes, the better the chances are for Andrade. Loopy can win here, she can get takedowns, or maybe Andrade just doesn't throw enough, but I think I can still trust Jessica in this particular matchup, so I'm picking her to win a decision. Our next fight is contested at middleweight, just like our main event, and it involves Baysangur Susurkaev against Eric Nolnan. So, Susurkaev, a confident undefeated kickboxer, 9-0 in his pro career. Susurkaev saw action just 2 days ago when he got a contract in Contender Series with a front kick to the body. Susurkaev fights with his hands down, looking to establish kicking range. While he will feint with the hands and occasionally jab, he does most of his range management and long range scoring with leg kicks and snap kicks to the body. A very flexible kicker, he will attack all 3 levels with both legs with roundhouses and front kicks. Not a slouch with the hands though. Susurkaev packs power, has a long 1-2 and a dangerous left hook that he can also throw to the body. Dangerous flying knees are also part of his game. Defense relies mostly on his very good spacing, but he will throw a high elbow guard to deal with punches from up close. He's at his most vulnerable when standing combinations as he doesn't move his head much and he keeps his chin up high. A solid wrestler and grappler on top of it, Susurkaev has been very hard to take down with quick hips in open space. Inside the clinch, his incredible balance is complemented by solid grip fighting and a very strong whizzer. And when he has space, he will attack with nasty elbows and knees to dissuade level changes. He can be too patient for his own good inside the clinch at times though, to the point of being passive. Susurkaev has also shown some grappling shots of his own, with whizzer kicks inside the clinch and nasty ground and pound when he scrambles to top position. While he fights with a relaxed demeanor, he does throw a lot of big strikes, and it took a toll on his gas tank the only time that he went to a decision. Other than that, his only apparent flaws are on his limited striking defense and willingness to spend time with his back against the fence. Against him we have Eric Nolnan. He's the current CFFC welterweight champion. Nolnan also takes the fight in very short notice, but a weight class up. He's mostly a counter puncher. He packs power in both hands, but his bread and butter is the left hook. To get the exchanges he wants, he pressures opponents to the cage behind leg kicks. Jab entries into big right hands and kicks to all 3 levels allow him to score and draw offense against fighters not willing to engage. He has solid defense, he gets low, hide behind his lead shoulder, and uses an effective active high guard. And this is complemented by solid footwork mechanics and his counter threat. Takedown defense has been mostly solid, he's the owner of good hips and has good reactions when controlling the initiative. And he can also threaten with a high elbow guillotine to revert position or force stand-ups. Chain wrestling against the cage has been a concern though, and from bottom he mostly focuses on avoiding damage over urgency to get up. Nolnan is only 4 years and 11 fights into his career. He seems to have a well put together game with solid technique and athleticism, but there's a lot of question marks around him. So Susurkaev becomes the first fighter to debut immediately after his Contender Series signing. Opposed to him, we have Eric Nolnan, who also took the fight on 4 days' notice. A lot of X factors going into this one, as Susurkaev is the one coming with a fight camp, but will be cutting weight for the second time in the week. Nolnan, on the other hand, is a career welterweight, taking this in very short notice. Nolnan is a big puncher with nothing to lose. The chances he puts the Russian out, especially if he's compromised by the weight cut, is not negligible. That said, the UFC obviously loves Susurkaev, and if they are making this fight, they might know something we don't, maybe regarding the weight cut. Nolnan is not a particularly big welterweight, and while his counterpunching could prove troublesome for Susurkaev, it is hard to not see him stuck at long range behind the variety of nasty kicks from the Russian kickboxer. It really is an anything can happen scenario, but I think I'm going with a knockout in round 2 for the Russian. Susurkaev wins here. We stay at middleweight as we have a fight between Gerard Meerschaert and Michal Oleksiejczuk. So Meerschaert, a veteran of 56 fights. Meerschaert is a southpaw BJJ specialist on the feet. He fights well behind the 1-2 and a very heavy left kick that he throws to the body and legs. Despite his plodding footwork, he moves well on the outside and can move opponents into shots, finding counter lefts and a wide right hook. When controlling the initiative, he's effective at leaning back and pivoting to avoid offense, but his reactions and mechanics can fall apart when pushed back with long combinations. Meerschaert is also decently strong in the clinch and can surprise with wide hooks and elbows during breaks. He can also surprise with reactive takedowns when moving opponents into shots, and he's also good at finding trips inside the clinch. While solid defending takedowns for the most part, he can be surprised in open space when being set up with strikes. He can also get reversed going for takedowns inside the clinch. From top position, he has very good control and passing, help with damaging ground and pound. He's an opportunistic submission threat from basically any position on the mat, with his guillotine and rear naked choke being his most trustworthy finishers. From his back, he's good at creating movement and finding sweeps, with his deep half game being of note. Age has become a factor for Meerschaert, whose lack of speed has been further affected by his reaction time. Cardio has also been hit and miss in the later part of his career. Against him we have Michal Oleksiejczuk, a southpaw pressure fighter. Michal likes to walk down his foes behind his high guard, moving his head side to side, feigning hands or looking to jab and line up his left hand, which he can throw wide or straight. Defense is not great, but he keeps in motion and is good at seeing shots coming, and his ability to parry kicks from his high guard is very useful to push foes to the fence. Once against the fence, he's a dangerous combination puncher, measures with his jabs and unloads with uppercuts and body shots that pile up damage quick. His defense also gets better when he's throwing against the fence, rolling and hiding behind his shoulders to avoid big counters. Oleksiejczuk is deceptively strong defending takedowns, denying shots with whizzers and underhooks and showing heavy hips and a quick sprawl when needed. He has been vulnerable to well-timed shots squaring his hips in the past though. A serviceable grappler, he can expose his back getting back up against the fence when wall walking. If he finds himself in top position, he has brutal ground and pound, being notably good at landing hard shots inside the close guard of his opponents. Oleksiejczuk has looked past his best since dropping to 185, but he remains tough and conditioned. His one-note approach and Yankee mechanics has cost him in the past. So this is a fight between southpaw veterans. Despite his 29-fight career, Oleksiejczuk is still only 30 years old, contrasted with Meerschaert, who is 37 here. The Polish fighter is coming with the momentum, ending his losing streak, finishing Cedric Dumas in his first fight under the Fighting Nerds brand. The American, on the other hand, is on a 2-fight losing streak, looking quite frankly old against Renner the Reader and fellow veteran Brad Tavares. Michal has 6 career losses to submission, which fares poorly against the staggering 29 submission wins by GM3. That said, Oleksiejczuk has been hard to take down, and you would expect a smarter approach by his new game plan driven gym. This is a close stance matchup that I feel favors the more natural striker in Oleksiejczuk, especially considering how GM3 often uses the open stance matchup to mask some of his speed deficiencies. It is still a dangerous fight for the Polish fighter, as the ground will be a dangerous place here. But I think that if he plays a committed pressuring game with emphasis on takedown defense, he can get it done. So, taking a risk here, I'm picking Oleksiejczuk by round 1 knockout here. And with that, we get to the main card. The opener is a flyweight bout between Team Elliot and Kai Asakura. So, after failing to win the UFC title in his debut against Alexander Pantoja, Kai Asakura gets long-time divisional staple Team Elliot. It has to be noted that Asakura, despite being a kickboxer by trade, was submitted for the first time in his career by the champion. Team Elliot doesn't have the immediate submission threat of Pantoja or the suffocating control of Hiromasa Ogikubo, but he does have the wrestling chops, durability, and pace that he brings to the table. And Elliot showed that he can still deal with long strikers in his last bout, submitting Suma Derji inside the round. That was almost 2 years ago though, and Elliot at 38 years old and 16 years into his career might experience a drop-off at any time. This dude has been fighting for like half his life, man. And it's not like he has been immune to years, with inconsistent results in the later stage of his career and inconsistent performances as well. We've seen like some weird performances from Team Elliot, like some very like striking heavy ones where he like wrestles a lot but doesn't strike. It's kind of like a common thing between all fighters. That being said, it has to be noted that the American has historically lost to fighters who can match him in the grappling department. Asakura might not be that, but he's still a very dangerous fighter with size, athleticism, and capable takedown defense and scrambling abilities. Kai Asakura is no stranger to being taken down and controlled, and most of the time he still finds a way to get back up and do more damage than his opponent. The Japanese shot selection is also worrying for the American here, as his big leg kicks, knees down the middle, and uppercuts might punish some of the habits of Elliot. Elliot has been vulnerable to leg kicks, and his tendency to slip deep might get him eating an uppercut, knee, or a head kick here. It is winnable for Elliot for sure. As I said, we've seen Asakura taken down and controlled in the past, and Elliot is no slouch on the feet either. But the age and the long layoff give me pause here. I expect Asakura to be the more damaging fighter. I still trust Elliot's durability. I feel if someone can finish it, it's probably Asakura, but I don't think that that's going to happen. And obviously, we're not expecting Asakura to find a submission here. So I'm going with the Japanese fighter Kai Asakura to win by decision. Once again, we have a middleweight bout. This time we have a fight between Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page MVP. So we have a weird matchup of strikers as career welterweight and karate stylist MVP faces off against MMA Lab's Jared Cannonier. MVP finds himself in the right side of the age equation for the first time since coming to the UFC, as the 38 years old is 3 years younger than Cannonier. Both come with almost the same amount of fights, 25 for MVP, 26 for Jared, but it's clear that MVP has absorbed less damage over his career, especially considering Cannonier last 4 as he got badly hurt in all of them. Age has affected both fighters though, as MVP plays a slower game and has pared down the dynamic kicking offense that made him a viral sensation a decade ago. Path to victory for Cannonier should be pretty straightforward here. Use his powerful leg kicks to track retreats and debase the Englishman, attack with long shots to the body and tries to force him into exchanges to find the punches to the head eventually. Work takedowns only if available, and if he gets on top, let go with his damaging ground and pound. When it comes to MVP, you know what he's going to do, and he will enjoy the length advantage that he likes in this matchup. He will stay long, poke with sidekicks, feint a lot, and look for spots to explode with his sleeping left hand. While I think Cannonier and his camp are usually smart, I feel like this older version of him is susceptible to the smoke and mirrors of MVP, especially if he's lured into throwing low volume or gets convinced he needs to sell out for takedown attempts to win. The chances of either man hurting the other one at range are not small either. They both have dangerous mix of accuracy and power, and the years aren't in vain. I think that Cannonier gets lured into a low volume affair and gets his takedowns denied in the clinch in a lackluster fight in which he might take a round finding something. Hope I'm wrong about the dynamic of the fight, but I think that MVP wins a decision here. And next we have a welterweight bout. We have Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. So, we have a southpaw versus southpaw striking affair here between power punchers Neal and Prates. Prates is the longer and more kicking oriented of the two, while also being 3 years younger than Neal. Neal, on the other hand, comes with less fights, 22 versus Prates 28, and Prates on top of that has a kickboxing and Muay Thai experience. But Neal has less fights, but more experience against high-level opposition. This being a close stance matchup is also very interesting. In some ways, I feel like Prates is better equipped for it, as he's the more active jabber of the two and a good leg kicker, while Neal relies a lot more on open side changeups and double attacks. Both guys have good variety in punch selection with the left hand, which will give them chances to land against a fellow southpaw. What I mean with that is that both guys can throw the left in the form of a straight, an overhand, a rear hook, an uppercut. So that's always good to have when you find yourself in a close stance matchup, because a lot of guys cannot find the straight left in the close stance and they kind of fall apart. Prates has an advantage with the jab, as already mentioned, and he has a more present right hook as well. Neal is really kind of a one-arm fighter. With Prates being longer and having the lead hand on top of his kicks and knees, I think it is normal to expect him to land at a higher clip here. He gotta be careful, especially when fighting knees though, because Neal will counter on a hair trigger. The clinch and grappling are other interesting avenues. Prates is historically the much more damaging fighter against the cage. Neal is a solid grappler and has shown good ground and pound, but Prates has been very hard to take down. Neal himself has been virtually impossible to take down, so I don't think Prates will even try much. Another thing to consider here is that Prates might go to orthodox to open up his open side attacks, but that would be a double-edged sword against the natural southpaw in Neal, right? Historically, we gotta consider that Neal has struggled with longer fighters who remain active, losing to a variety of them actually, in Ian Gary, Wonderboy, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Even going back into his career, he lost back in the day to Kevin Holland in his only knockout loss of his career. So that's something that, despite the years, that's a stylistic thing that has not changed much for Geoff Neal. And we could also forget that Prates, just like Neal, is a huge puncher in his own right. So it's not like Neal is the only one likely to win a round with a big moment here. I think that Prates has two clear advantages here. Neal might have some boxing advantage, and that's always valuable in a close stance matchup. But I think that Prates will take advantage of the length, the lead hand, the kicking, and maybe even the clinch, and he will win a decision here. We go to featherweight for our co-main event, as we have Lerone Murphy welcoming Aaron Pico to the UFC. So undefeated Murphy welcomes long-time blue chip prospect Aaron Pico to the UFC. Pico came to the attention of the MMA world as he got signed to Bellator back in 2014 with no previous MMA experience. Pico was an outstanding collegiate and freestyle wrestler, and he also began boxing at the age of 10. Instead of pursuing wrestling, he saw a career in MMA. After losing his debut in 2017, Pico is now 13-4 at only 28 years old, with a decent amount of high-level experience. The 34-year-old Murphy, on the other hand, has never been defeated and comes into this fight of a main event victory against Josh Emmett. So what does Pico bring to the table here? He's a power puncher that likes to walk people down, goes to the body a lot, and also attacks body and legs with kicks. He constantly mixes in the threat of the takedown, and while he's not great at controlling, he's the owner of thunderous ground and pound. So how does Murphy deal with all of this? First, Murphy is the superior jabber in the matchup, and that's on top of being the longer fighter, right? This will be key on allowing Murphy to not get trapped against the fence and get back to open space to control the initiative of the exchanges. He's also more active with feints, has a more nuanced footwork, and is a respectable power puncher of his own right. But we gotta remember that Murphy is undefeated but hasn't been perfect in his MMA career. He got dropped badly by Dan Ige 2 fights ago, and was taken down against the fence by Ige and also Josh Emmett when he was going for his high guard against the fence. This looks like a fight where Pico marches forward and Murphy has to navigate around it. Murphy does have experience doing that though, and has the variety and the tactics to do it. His jab and also his intercepting elbows were a great tool against Josh Emmett that was looking to close the distance, and Pico leaps into range a fair amount. He can play longer with kicks and switch into southpaw to create angles for his exits as well. And in the case of being taken down, he has shown good grappling and scrambling ability to get back up, plus good wrestling defense, finding grips against the fence. Pico, I think, is likely to have success early, with a decent chance of a finish, as he's always one big moment away from winning a round as well. But I feel the experience against high-level opposition, the level of activity and nuance will swing things in favor of Murphy. I think that the British keeps himself in the middle of the cage, controls action with his jab, and lands more consistently for a decision victory. I'm picking Lerone Murphy here. And with that, we get to the main event. Champion Dricus du Plessis defends his middleweight championship against undefeated Khamzat Chimaev. So, as with all Khamzat fights, a lot of unknowns involved here. He has shown against Kamaru Usman and Robert Whittaker that he can still impose his game against high-level athletes with good takedown defense. But you gotta consider both Usman and Whittaker were past their primes when they fought the Chechen fighter. And Usman took the fight on very short notice while expecting to take a welterweight fight, so he didn't quite have the size. Usman and Gilbert Burns have also exposed how Chimaev's game isn't as dangerous when you don't play the wall walk game against the fence. Chimaev did show maturity in his Robert Whittaker fight, showing a more energy efficient game, not selling out for big mat returns or wild ground and pound. Dricus on his part has shown flashes of brilliant grappling and has probably the best mix of size, strength and athleticism that Chimaev has faced so far, especially considering the age and wear and tear of the versions of Usman and Whittaker the Chechen face. While it is true Dricus has found himself on his back numerous times against lesser wrestlers, he also has shown the ability to scramble back up, but you don't want to give Chimaev the chance to get the ball rolling to begin with. What du Plessis brings to the table, other than like the size, the strength, the athleticism, something that he brings to the table with consistency is good ideas about how to approach a fight and the ability to stick to what's working during a fight as well. If Dricus tries to stay in the middle of the cage and defend takedowns there in open space, he can force a stand-up battle, and we might have a fight here. If he stayed on the feet, though, it is not an auto win for Dricus either, as Chimaev has shown striking chops, and it's in a lot of ways the cleaner striker of the two. Dricus is obviously the more comfortable and experienced fighter here as a striker, but I feel like you cannot like just ignore that Chimaev is like a very quick guy with like solid mechanics, and Chimaev brings solid ideas to the striking. I feel like Chimaev, for example, like Chimaev is longer than Dricus du Plessis, and he has like a nasty jab. One of the best qualities that Chimaev has as a striker. He's a good jabber from both stances, and he always remembers to jab, and that can do so much for you. Chimaev also has like long snap kicks. He punches very hard too. Like, do you guys remember that knockout over Gerard Meerschaert? Crazy stuff. So Chimaev has some qualities on the feet. It's not like oh, you defended the takedown against Chimaev, fight's over. Like, obviously we have like very little sample size to measure the striking of Chimaev. First, we have like that knockout over Ikram Aliskerov. Beautiful uppercut from range. He got to pivot after it as well for style points. Then he got that war with Burns, right? Okay, maybe like getting into a war with Gilbert Burns, that version of Gilbert Burns, I thought he looked very decent. But that was like an experienced striker, Chimaev, right? And he showed a lot of good stuff. He showed the ability to fight behind the jab, to calm down after getting scolded by his corner, which like he was getting crazy out there. But during that third round, he kind of like dialed it back, started fighting behind the jab. He was looking good at a lot of times, Chimaev there. And then we saw that knockout against GM3, and then Chimaev looked concerning a little bit in that Kamaru Usman fight, but I think that Chimaev thought that he had the fight on the scorecards maybe, and he was like coasting, which like you don't actually want to do against Dricus. So when I say that Dricus is the more comfortable striker here, is that first, Chimaev kind of tense on the feet. Chimaev knows how to shoulder roll behind his lead shoulder, but he still does it like kind of low, and he can get clipped in the like higher part of his head. Being tense is bad to absorb shots too. It's better to like flow with them and rolling. And Chimaev, you can tell like he's like a ball of like tense energy. He's not like super fluid. And like Dricus when he's getting hit, he's kind of relaxed. Like, he doesn't have great defense. He usually looks very awkward because I don't know why Dricus stands like that, man. Like, he puts on the double forward guard, and he takes shots very well. He's very durable, man. And Dricus is like not invincible. He has been hurt. He was hurt bad in that. People forget. Dricus was hurt bad on the feet by Trevin Jones. I mean, not Trevin Jones. Is it Trevin Giles? The guy who later dropped to welterweight. And he came back with that insane knockout there on the counter. But there's where Dricus like shows his comfort on the feet. Is when he has this ability to like put kicks at the end of combinations, of covering up and counter, of remember to jab as well. That Dricus like has some good jabbing habits, like we saw in that fight against Robert Whittaker, right? So and Dricus like hits hard, and he has very good cardio. We don't know about the cardio of Chimaev yet. Like, to be honest, like that fight against Gilbert Burns was insane. Like, both guys were super tired at the end. But to be honest, like, that was good cardio by Chimaev. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Chimaev sells out on the cardio in the first round, and then he's going to be dead. And maybe against Usman it was a bit like that. Maybe there was a bit of coasting. But Chimaev showed like good heart and good cardio there. Those are good qualities to have and to bring to a title fight. So I think there's a chance that this like becomes like a war. Like it is a crazy war because like Chimaev might not have the confidence, the comfort, the experience on the feet, but he does have some good habits. He's well schooled. He throws heat, man. Hands up Chimaev, man. So there's a chance. So let's explore like the possible scenarios here because like this fight is insanely unpredictable. There's a very big chance that this fight is not good, but it is very compelling because like you don't know what's going to happen. First, because you have Dricus, and with Dricus you never know what you're getting, right? I mean, you kind of know, but you're still surprised when you see it. And on the other hand, you have Chimaev, who, despite having some very high-level wins, he's still somewhat of an unknown commodity here. So, first, a scenario that it's completely possible here. Chimaev drops down for the double leg, gets Dricus in a wall walk, mat return loop against the cage. He just takes the back, submits him, wins the fight. Okay, that's one scenario. Then you have scenario number 2. Both guys can get an early knockout. Like both guys hits hard. Neither have great defense. A nasty knockout super early. That's a big chance for that too. So let's get into what happens if that doesn't happen, like the most obvious, like early finishes one. Okay, what if Dricus survives a few rounds against the cage? Like he gets his back taken, he somewhat survives. Does Chimaev get super tired and gets worked over the next few rounds? Very possible, actually. Very possible. We've seen Chimaev like bank it out for 3 rounds against Gilbert Burns, but he didn't sell out for the wrestling in that one during the first round, right? So there's the other scenario where Dricus mounts the comeback after Chimaev gets his like classic start. Then we have another scenario where Dricus actually keeps his feet in the center of the cage. He defends takedowns there. He gets taken down a few times. He's able to get back up or stall Chimaev, doesn't take a lot of damage. And then we have rounds of kickboxing. I feel in this scenario it's not as likely that Chimaev gets tired because he will not go crazy for the finish, I feel, in the middle of the cage. We saw that against Usman. Chimaev is a lot more confident of playing the mat return game and looking for the back to get the rear naked choke when he is against the fence. Against Kevin Holland, I feel like he went crazy because he felt like he could do whatever to Kevin Holland. He was still getting tired with all the scrambling, so I'm not quite sure. But if Dricus gets it on the feet, we might get that kickboxing match. And then, like, obviously we favor Dricus, but I feel like we cannot discount Chimaev, right? And maybe Chimaev like has improved as a transition fighter, and that would be another thing to consider. What if Chimaev like gets a few takedowns in a few rounds, a few key takedowns in a few rounds, and wins a decision? I feel like a lot of people are like saying this is impossible, but I actually feel like there's a chance. There's a chance like Chimaev doesn't need much to transform into like a transition fighter because his shot is so fast. So what if Chimaev comes out more conservative? We already saw improvements in Chimaev's energy expenditure against Robert Whittaker, I feel. He was not going for big lifts. He was like just systematically attacking posts and using rights against the fence. Whittaker was like very careful about not giving up his back. So he just kept like ankle right, wrist right. Ground and pound, but not going crazy with the ground and pound because you know Chimaev when he wants to go crazy with the ground and pound, that shit goes hard. But it was like a lot more methodical. So this is what I'm envisioning here because at the end of the day, like to predict a fight like this, you just gotta like run simulations on your head and just pick one. So I'm going with a very crazy pick here. Chimaev will come out. He will be able to take down Dricus. I feel like Dricus will be able to survive. They will get into some crazy striking exchanges down the line. I feel like Dricus might take some rounds with more consistent output, be the more comfortable striker. But this is where I'll go like with the insane prediction here. I think that Chimaev will be able to get takedowns in the later rounds. And he will be able to like get top control, land some hard shots, clutch a few ones. And I feel like Chimaev will win a decision. We're going with that. Okay? And that's the prediction. And with that, we wrap up the pay-per-view. So, how good is this one? No, actually, it's pretty decent. The main event, as I said during the breakdown, is very, very compelling. And I think, like, we're going to... Maybe it's not, like, good quality. And it might be good quality, too. Like, I'm not... When I say it might not be good quality, I'm not saying that it's going to be a bad fight, right? I'm just saying that there's a chance that it's, like, super one-sided. But I feel like whatever happens in the fight, we're going to have a good time watching it, I feel. Then we have, like, co-main event is insanely compelling. Like, Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. A fantastic fight. Very excited to see Pico in the UFC. And it's a very interesting debut, man. I feel like Lerone Murphy brings some more interesting stuff that maybe Evloev in some aspects. So I'm very excited about that one. So now that I mentioned those fights, like, why don't we I'll give you a quick opinion on the fights and not outside the breakdowns. Going down. Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. I don't think that Prates is going to allow Jeff Neal to have a boring fight. We know that both of these guys have like terrible fights with Ian Gary. But we know these guys are capable of bangers. Like, just remember when Prates was killing people, or when Jeff Neal fought Shavkat Rakhmonov. So I think these guys are going to put on a good fight, and I think that the Southpaw versus Southpaw always is kind of like sketchy and messy, and I feel like someone is getting hurt here. It's going to be a good fight. I support it. Cannonier versus MVP. I feel like the chances of this being a fun, watchable fight are kind of low. It's crazy matchmaking. I don't quite like it, but it's interesting. It's not like I'm not going to take my eyes off of the screen for this one. So you win, UFC, with this one. Team Elliot versus Kai Asakura. It's dope that flyweights get to be on the main card. Always. It's kind of a weird matchup. It's not insanely relevant. Maybe the UFC trying to position Asakura right back at the top of the division. I don't know. But Team Elliot is an interesting question. And it's very unlikely that this one is a bad fight. Like, Team Elliot is usually, like, even when he fights in frustrating ways, it's usually very exciting. Kai Asakura is always exciting, so it's a good fight. I support it. We have Susurkaev versus Eric Nolnan. Weird fight. Not sure why this is here. Maybe the UFC knew that they were going to lose a few fights and they needed like a new fight. They could have tried to get like replacements for whoever pulled out of Carlos Diego Ferreira and Bobby Green, and the Ultimate Fighter. Oh yeah, you cannot get the replacements for the Ultimate Fighter final, so I get it in that one. Nolnan is neat. I'm glad that he is making it to the UFC. But there's like, this fight is kind of sketchy because Susurkaev gotta make weight for the second time in the week, and Nolnan is like a not big welterweight, as I said on the breakdown, but it's still like kind of compelling. Meerschaert versus Oleksiejczuk. I don't like it as a fan of both guys, but it's actually like good matchmaking. This is how you match veterans. Kind of weird that they made this with Oleksiejczuk coming off a win against Meerschaert coming on a 2-fight losing streak. But it's solid. It's solid and I like it. Jessica Andrade versus Lupita Godinez. Like, Andrade finally gets a step down in competition after mixed results lately. Lupita, I feel like it's better than her UFC record shows. And if Lupita wins, like, it would be impressive. And Jessica Andrade has like a good foil to have a good fight here in Lupita Godinez, just because they are in similar size and they're going to bang it out in the pocket. If Lupita tries to wrestle, Andrade can be fun too defending takedowns. So I feel like it's a good fight. Hernandez versus Hooper. It's going to be solid because Chase Hooper brings violence, man. I don't know what's going on with this pasty white kid, but he brings the heat, man. I'm not even a fan. Like, I don't like the style of Chase Hooper, but you know he's going to be in crazy ass fights because he just throws heat on the feet and then grapples very aggressively. So we'll see what Hernandez does here, because I think like Hooper is going to bring the heat to Hernandez here. Edson Barbosa versus Drakkar Klose is also like good veteran matchmaking, and I like it. It's also a compelling fight because like you wonder if Drakkar Klose is going to pressure, which is like a thing that he already likes. But we'll see if he's able to do it against Barbosa. Barbosa obviously like on his prime, like a way better fighter than Klose ever was. But he's not in his prime anymore. Drakkar Klose also kinda old, but he doesn't have like the wear and tear of an Edson Barbosa. Ruziboev versus Bryan battle is like, Battle needs a fight now that he's back at 185. I'm not huge on Ruziboev, but like they're going probably bang, especially like just as I said in Southpaw versus Southpaw. Tall guy versus tall guy is usually a fucking mess, and the good kind. So I support it actually. Karine Silva versus Dione Barbosa for a late replacement. They made a good fight. Props to the UFC. Props to Dione Barbosa for taking this fight, especially considering that she already has a win over Karine Silva. But I like it. And the opener, the Ultimate Fighter finale, Alibi Idiris versus Joseph Morales is a great fight. This one is the one that is flying under the radar here. And I didn't even watch Tough, man. I went back to watch the fights in preparation for this. And I gotta say, man, these two fighters are very exciting. Like, Morales has clearly improved since his time in the UFC. Idiris is a blue chip prospect. It's going to rule. So actually, I gotta say, maybe this pay-per-view doesn't have like all the big names, other than a few ones on the main card. But I feel like the matchmaking here is very, very solid. The UFC has put on quite a few like bad pay-per-views lately, and I don't think this is one of them. It has a great main event. It has an actual co-main event, and it has like big fight feel on the down the line, like Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates, like Cannonier versus Michael Page is like a pay-per-view fight, right? You're not making this for a fight night because it's so like out of the box that I gotta support it. So yeah, that's the pay-per-view. I actually like it. My hidden gem for this one is Idiris versus Joseph Morales. And that's it. Thank you as always, guys, for joining the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakdowns. Let me know any questions or any comments that you want to know. Remember that if you want to support this, you can head over to Patreon to get access to exclusive content. You can head over to the store to get exclusive merch. And remember, as always, to head over to YouTube to subscribe to the channel and watch the videos. I'm putting quite a few videos this week out, so check those out. And I'll see you guys on Saturday during Fight Companion, so we can watch the fights together. Love you guys, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.